Welcome again to Carry On Friends podcast, if I can speak properly. Today we have two guests, all right? And I want to share with you our guests. Our main guest right now is Mr. Clive Williams. But most importantly, I also want to make sure I say welcome to Mikelah Rose, who's been on the show and has been a frequent guest of the show way before I even joined the show. So welcome, Mikelah.
Hello, good evening.
Yes. Mr. Clive Williams happens to be my father, and he is a hypnotherapist, a psychotherapist, a mad scientist, and a number of other things. And also the founder and publisher of Where It's At magazine. So, as we talk about friends, I feel like, friends, he knows a lot about friendships, relationships, obviously from having a counseling practice for a number of years, and can speak to how relationships impact us, especially in today's society.
Welcome, Mr. Williams. That's the next segue.
Well, yes.
Drop it so.
So I figured you
just drop it so.
Well, it's a mic drop. That was a mic drop moment, So we want to say welcome to Mr. Clive Williams.
Thank you very much, guys. Love the topic. Means a lot to me. I have been through a number of what I thought were friendships a long, long time ago. And then having to look back, hindsight is 2020. Now I'm the kind of quarterback. I'm able to see that many of the friendships that I developed weren't in fact friendships. It's interesting. I try to look at the suffix of the word ship, and it took me all over the place. But, it is good to note. One of the things that really stands out with that suffix is that when you're on board ship, if any of you guys have been on board ship, whether a cruise or whatever, you'll notice one thing. You're all on one single boat. Therefore, most of your experiences, except when you're in your cabins, are going to be shared experiences. If that ship gets bucked by waves, if there's inclement weather, everybody's going to share in that on that ship. So if I would hazard a guess, I'm going to say that without getting into the psychological part of it, let's just deal with the common sense part of it, the emotional intelligence part of it, is that if you are in a ship, you are going to be rocked by bad weather, storms, waves, high waves, rough waves. You're going to see squalls. You're going to see the heavens open up, and like you've never seen before, an open sea. It's a totally different experience. What is going to happen is a number of things are going to happen. Number of events are going to take place that you never really experienced while you're land-bound, And when you're on land, you miss certain experiences. When you're on the open sea, certain things become very, very clear to you. It becomes so close to you when the seas begin to really get rough and the winds begin to blow really hard. So I use that analogy to say that's really friendship. When people develop a relationship, which begins before the friendship, there are going to be times when that ship is going to be rocked really hard by either the poor communication, by misunderstandings, by sometimes inconsideration on the part of you or the other person. So I now rationalize that friendship really means you're on a long haul on a ship with someone or others that you're going to have to experience the rough, the calm, the inclement, the ups and downs of life. So if that is going to be so, then what's the point of having a friendship if you're going to have to go through all that? Well, it comes out for me in the wash in that you begin to learn from these experiences. Profound lessons come from understanding the other person, how that person reacts under stress, how that person takes the rocking of the ship, how that person manages to stand firm when the waves hit that ship. So you learn a lot about others. But what I would hope that we take away from it is that we learn a lot more about ourselves.
All right. And that's it for the end of this episode. I don't know what else we're going to talk about. But no, this is great because in this opening statement, you've answered the question, reasons why friendships dissipate. Poor communication, misunderstanding, inconsideration. Most offenses can go into one of those three buckets. So the question is, we know friendship get rocky, they toss and turn and whatever, all the things on our boat. And I can be honest, like when these things happen, Carrie, I'm not the first one to really want to reconcile. I easily walk away. I say, listen, later for this, me done. And there probably are some friendships who are at that point where you have to just walk away. So, what tools can we use to evaluate whether this is a friendship it's worth working out, working through, or it's like, as we used to say back in the 90s, peace, done, deuces, whatever. Maybe you could help with that.
I think at that time, an intervention is really necessary. If a friendship at all has been a friendship, you need intervention. You need a second or third participant. And look, there are times that I truly recommend getting a professional involved, but that's not always practical. It's costly. It's just not a doable thing for the vast majority of people. So in the absence of that, what we would do is get responsible, reliable, dependable friends of the friends involved. So I would say, for example, to Chris, Carrie Ann and I, we have a great friendship over the years, and something happened that seems to have shaken that friendship. Is there something that you observe that I might be doing that Carrie Ann is not happy with? Do you sense something about Carrie Ann that might not be responding very well to my behavior, to my attitudes? So intervention. And, you get that opinion from the friend who then weighs in and says, you know what? Carrie Ann is a little bit sensitive about certain things, especially when you get too personal. So maybe that's something you want to consider. And so that intervention by that friend might give you some inkling, some idea as to where you might be treading wrong with Carrie Ann. And you get a second opinion from maybe another gender. You maybe go to a lady who is a friend and kind of ask the same question and see what kind of response. What you're in fact doing is you're analyzing and measuring not just how you value that friendship, but how other people, the value of that friendship to other people. Because remember, your friendship with me, if we're friends, impacts on other people. And so it's a chain effect that you're going to have. So be careful in just devaluing and breaking up friendships, because it starts a chain reaction that could end up, you don't know where. And so my first suggestion is intervention. And that intervention might cause you to reconsider the position that you might have taken. And you might be the one to say, you know what, maybe I wasn't considerate enough. Maybe I'm the one who, it becomes necessary for me to be the one carrying the olive branch. Or it might be necessary for you to say, well, you know what, Carrie Ann, I have thought long and hard about this. And honestly, I've consulted some of our friends, and I would like this friendship to continue. However, are you as passionate as I am about continuing this friendship? See what Carrie Ann says. Carrie Ann says, you know what, I'm not certain. Then we're at a standoff. Say, look, let's think about it. Let's sleep on it. And let's come back to this. But there should always, always be an effort to work things out. And, very often, in my experience, it plays out that some of the very simplest, the most minute little events can put pressure on a friendship. And, once pressure is brought to bear on a friendship, that's when it's going to test the friendship. And it makes the friendship stronger, or it begins to degrade the friendship. Once you see the friendship is being degraded, then it's time to step away. Both people take time out and look at this very carefully from their neutral corners.
Mikelah, you look like you have something to say. Mikelah, they look like.
I'm listening with intention.
That's an interesting word.
I think that's pretty spot on, and especially the idea of bringing in a third party. Most people feel like, oh yeah, chat my business, and they take that approach versus looking at it from an analytical standpoint of, I'm evaluating my feelings by bouncing it off of someone else who I trust. But if that person isn't like a mutual party, then it seems very one-sided. So I think having that mutual person to kind of intervene, but they also have to be intelligent enough to separate the emotions that they have connected to these two people to be caught in the middle. It's a very interesting dynamic, because that's usually my go-to method. I'll talk to, one or two people to evaluate, am I crazy? Could I have approached this a different way? Or is my understanding of this particular situation is wrong? But there's still a whole nother side of this story that the person hasn't really heard from the horse's mouth, if it's only my side.
Also, the intervention can go wrong. The people who you can listen.
It can go south so quickly.
Like the people you bring in and mix up on top of what's already happening.
Absolutely. And look, this is why we live. It's to expect that everything we do is a calculated risk. And, it is with the right intention that we should pursue this kind of intervention. And yes, it's a calculated risk. There's another aspect other than the psychology, other than the behavior. There is an outside influence, which I will just refer to as energy, and in every friendship, one of the things one has to take into consideration is energy. I tell you how that is best demonstrated. When you have a friend, with me, I feel the need with absolutely no other stimulus, but that I feel the need to connect with my friend. That little voice that says, pick up the phone, call Carrie Ann. That little voice which says, Carrie Ann, I haven't heard from her, wonder how she's doing. That stimulus, which comes to most of us who are in tune, is that outside energy, which you can attribute to our spirituality, our sense of awareness, is also an integral part of the balance that keeps us in relationships, that keeps compatibility, that keeps harmony, that keeps balance, this natural energy. Because remember, we're part of the universe, where we are really a microcosm of the universe. And I think this is where the spiritual comes in, not so much the church, but the spiritual, an awareness of the relationship we have with the universe, and hence with our brothers and sisters and our friends and so forth. So we can rely on that too very often to heal things. So that's why sometimes I say, step away and allow that energy to work, and then hopefully we'll bring harmony to it. But I sort of want to raise a kind of other specter here in terms of friendships. I should be called out for malpractice if I didn't. There are two major threats to friendship that we often don't consider, and they're subtle. They're there, and I'll say it in one sentence: promises not kept and expectations not met. So what do I mean by that? 9 times out of 10, maybe 9.5 times out of 10, guys, you'll find that friendships are threatened by promises that were made. Relationships, marriages are threatened. Relationships with children are threatened by promises not kept and expectations on the part of others that are not met. And these two threats to friendship, I think, are two of the most corrosive and insidious threats to friendships that we can ever consider. Much more so than the incidental stuff that happens, the misunderstandings that take place on a daily basis. So people, if you're the sort of person who is guilty of just promising, of just saying, okay, I'm going to call you. What time are you going to call? Don't worry, I'll call you. But you never call because you are there now, Carrie Ann, saying, well, I'm expecting Clive to call. Clive does not call, your expectations are not met. And my promises are not kept. And it compounded 3 or 4 times, and then trust things really degrade and diminish friendships and relationships. And we go about our business almost sublimely unconscious of the fact that we do this every day. These two elements are really pernicious in destroying friendships. Promises not kept and expectations not met. It's a two-way street. You are very mindful of not making promises that we know we can't keep, we won't keep, and people raising their expectations too high in expectation of those promises.
I guess this is the last question. I mean, before you drop, and then the three of us continue this conversation, because like students, so just take heed what the professor they say, and now we're going to study after, right? But can men and women be just friends?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jesus. Somebody finally say yes.
Why not? Okay, so let me tell you where I'm coming from, and it's a kind of learned perspective that I have here. We're not going to be giving you statistical assessments, interpretations of this, because they don't exist, really. The fact is, experientially, I have met women that I so absolutely respect and care for that no other thought enters my mind other than to tap the resources that they have to offer in terms of that friendship. I have friendships like that for beyond decades that I have. I don't want to date myself, you know what I mean? I have to be careful when I'm talking to people a little bit younger than I am, lest I say too many years and I lose you and you begin to think it's old school. No, it's new school.
Wow.
Who want to take it away? Yeah, like Mikelah said, mic drop.
Oh, you mic drop. Yeah, that was a mic drop moment.
We were the students in class just listening intently. There was nothing to say. And now we can discuss all the things that we need to, discuss.
Absolutely.
I loved his perspective. And honestly, I can see how Chris, me a big you up still, because your father is a real one. So I understand. And to just be able to sit and talk to someone and have that in-depth wisdom around you all the time, I can totally see your entire history, why you are the way you are, who you are, and how you present yourself to everyone. I get it. Let me just say that, first of all. And I think second of all, he had some very clear and very distinct, simplistic approach to friendships. And I think that we tend to overcomplicate it. And in its basic form, he just broke it down so eloquently. And the idea of expectations not being met and promises unfulfilled, oh my gosh, that for me was just like, It made me think of all the promises I ever kept and all the expectations that I had of other people. And it almost made you want to reevaluate those situations. I mean, I'm not going back to redo anything. At least I don't think so at this point. But it gives me a much clearer understanding of where misunderstanding and communication can lead to, the dissolve of a friendship, I think. And you can drop the ball as an individual, and they can drop the ball as well. And also being able to come to a standstill and be okay with that. Like, I think, we're not always going to agree. So it's like, you kind of have to just hold your corner, and sometimes come out. So I don't know. What were you guys thinking?
I mean,
first of all, hold on. You see, listen, the first time I talked to Mr. Williams about an hour and a half on the phone with Mr. Williams.
Listen, we need to work with Mr. Williams at least once a quarter. Him look like him can breathe some inspiration in my life when we need.
Listen, I took pages of notes of what he was saying because that's why I was like, Chris, we got to get your dad on this episode because he's just great to talk to. So yes, Chris, yes, your father. But yes, you gone.
Oh man, I'm just sorry that he was so pressed for time, but normally things would have flowed. We would have been able to continue on a lot longer, but he had a critical meeting that he had to take. But it's funny because and thank you so much, Mikelah and Carrie, for the big up. I appreciate it. It has been a journey with my dad, learning, right, and I'm still learning today. But yeah, he really broke it down in his simplest form, and I myself can honestly say that, looking back, there are friendships that maybe I played a part in dissolving, right? Or causing to come to an end. But then one of the things I think about when it comes to some of these friendships that maybe fell by the wayside is the depth of the friendship. How deep was it? Because when you have a deep friendship, misunderstandings are going to happen. Like he said, it's, a ship, right? You're on a ship. You're going to have your good days, your bad days. Some days the weather is just going to be bad and it's going to be rocking and, the ship might even capsize, but, the captain goes, like everybody's going to scramble and you get a lifeboat and you're back on another ship, right? So at some point things will be fine and work out. I've had friendships and I still have friendships with people that I've known for, 25, 30 years because of that reason. Like we know we're going to have our ups and downs. We've had miscommunication, but then, the communication gets clarified and we're back again. We're good. I've made mistakes. I've fallen short. They've fallen short. But then because we know the individual, because we know each other and we know the goodness of the person, because I think we always have to look at the whole person. Then when you look at that person, you look at Carrie Ann, you look at Mikelah, you know that they are more than this one moment. They're more than this one, this 5 minutes of, flare up with them, say, your blood, fire, whatever it is that you say, they're more than that, right? Then you can say, well, okay, so you know what? Let me talk to Mikelah, let me talk to Carrie, and let me understand what led to this, and then let's work it out. So, yeah, wow.
I also think that's steeped in a certain level of honesty, right? And understanding of self and understanding of the friendship that you do have. Because sometimes it's like, is this really what's going on? Or is there something underlying that you're not telling me? And if the opportunity presents itself for you to completely share holistically what all of your issues, grievances, yada, 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 and I'm saying, put it out there all on the table and you refuse, then there's a certain level of lack of clarity within yourself. And there's nothing there that I can really work with. So I think that there's a certain level of honesty that we have to have with ourselves, along with who we're trying to hold accountable in this friendship.
All right. So here where me I come in. All right. Friendships. Friendships are relationships. Unfortunately, people don't take them seriously. So when there is an emotional reaction to a friendship or a hurt from a friendship, people struggle to reconcile that because they're like, yo, it's just a friend. But we have longer friendships than we do a lot of times romantic relationships. And it's because, you don't really look at my friendship with Mikelah as a romantic relationship, but it is indeed a deep relationship that if Mikelah says something, it's going to hurt, and it's going to probably hurt just as much or maybe worse than if my husband hurt my feelings, right? Or if, something. And I think that's the first thing. I had to learn that through my own friendship trials that I went through. The second thing, and I wish that we could have had Mr. Williams talk about it. We all three of us here have very distinct personalities, right? I am the quiet observer. So when you say, I want the blood fire, I'm not going to be that person who's going to like, oh, you do something? Oh, all right, may I watch you all go on because may I observe. And in a way, I can be that pressure cooker that offenses build up and build up until one day I say, oh, Me not say nothing. Yeah, Mikelah let's smile because she already knows. Say, all right, me exit stage, whichever left, whatever.
Walk
So,
wide.
walk, Mikelah, no, me walk very wide. Me stop talk like everybody know. You see, once me stop talk, you just know, say, worries and problems, right? Me just done. Now, I'm also honest with myself that is that the right way to approach any relationship? It's not. But I also feel like there's a give and take, a push or pull in relationships to understand, Mikelah is more outspoken than I am. And she knows that I'm not talking. So minute Mikelah know me go quiet, Michaela's like, oh, what's going on? What you thinking? She's done that because she knows that's where I go. And I think that's kind of where the promises kept, because as a friend, if Mikelah and I, Chris and I were going into this friendship, you promise to be my brother's keeper, sister's keeper. And if you can't pick up on the clues of my personality, if me have to tell you, Chris, every time something about me, I mean, I have bridging for about 30 years, and you can't pick up, say, something wrong, then you have to question the depth, like you said, Chris, of the relationship. Just like you in a relation, you have kids and you have a spouse or whatever, you have siblings, you are able to pick up certain things, and then you have to decide, okay, you negotiate how you're going to make those communication. People go say, no, Carrie, something about you have to talk. That's not me. I try, but that is not me. And so it is, but I will communicate in my way, but I'm not that one that's going to, so Chris, look for me like, really now? Really?
No. I agree. I hear what you're saying. And see, that's what makes this, it's not simple. So in terms of the definition, how he said promises not kept, expectations not met, that sort of gives you a framework to understand, give you some insight into friendship, right? What it's all about. But we're human beings, and human beings are complex. Human beings have many sides, emotions, all sorts of different things. So this is why the word friendship shouldn't be tossed around so lightly. I see too many people say, yeah, man, I'm a friend, that man. Yeah, my brethren and my sister, and that's my bona fide, and that, all these different terms we use. But okay, so let's just go with bona fide. If you're going to use that, that means you're saying, that's the real deal. Like, this person is my friend 10 times over. Right? Because it's your bona fide. So if I call Carrie Ann or Mikelah my bona fide, that means, I really rock for them. I have their back no matter what. And people use that and don't really mean it. They don't stand by it. And so, it's very important that as we go through life, and for people who are listening to this, understand and reevaluate how you use the word friend, right? Who is really your friend? What makes them your friend? Because both of you have to have an investment. Like, both of you have to invest in this relationship to make it work. It shouldn't be just you doing this for Carrie or doing this for Mikelah or doing this for Chris. No, like, everybody should have, input into building this and to taking it to the next level. Otherwise, it won't last 30 years. It won't even last 5 minutes, because everybody's just going to take what they can get and keep it pushing.
I think where you said, and Mikelah and I have had this conversation many a times, to make distinctions in our relationships, right? So you have friends like, me and Mikelah friend, and then I have my other friends, right? Those are very important distinction. Mikelah has friends that they are friends outside of me and her, and those friendships are valuable. And I think we live in this world where people, as much as I say, yeah, Mikelah is my friend, right? I don't have complete ownership of her. She has other aspects of ourselves that other friends. And I think that part of it is where we get tangled up, like, is my friend and you are nobody else's friend type thing. And I have other friends outside of that. And, everybody meets. Mikelah has met a lot of my friends. I've met a lot of her other friends. But those friendships also add dimension to Mikelah and I's friendship because they bring experience. That being said, we have to be able to distinguish whether the people you are walking by in the internet hallways, are they just people, just like how you live in a community. My neighbor out the street and I'm my friend. I'm a neighbor. Yeah, let me up and go about my business. They are just my neighbor. And the distinction of the people we meet, and we use friend for everything. So the minute we add the connotation of friend is where we have expectations that will unlikely to be met because you are call them friend, but they may not see you as friend.
But also that expectation of defining a friendship isn't necessarily something you talk about or establish before establishing a friendship. Unlike a relationship, you have a conversation that says, well, what are your expectations? What are your plans for me? When you're engaging and building a friendship, you don't sit your friend down and say, well, what are your intentions for this relationship? Because essentially you're just growing brick by brick, and the friendship that will come out is the friendship that will come out. So for me, my expectations for everyone that I meet are very low. And that's not to say that I don't have high expectations, but I meet people with the intention of we're going to build to whatever this relationship is going to be. It could be a business association relationship. It could be a bona fide relationship. It can be a very close friend that I do talk to at specific moments. It could be just someone that I go out with. And all of those levels, it's levels, as Drake is saying. But there's opportunity for new friends, which I don't believe Drake in that sense. No new friends. It doesn't exist in my book. And two, you have to be okay. Both parties have to mutually be okay with exploring where the friendship goes. And whenever you hit roadblocks with every type of friendship or every type of relationship. But how you resolve those issues and move forward is really where it kind of takes the cake. And those are the moments that you go from associate to friend to bona fide, because those are the moments that really definitively, decide what the intentions behind unspoken intentions, right? And I think what your dad was really talking about was super clear, because it's easy. And that's why I think the male-female relationship is always a question, because there's a definitive, clear boundary between opposite sexes that you establish very early on, where you can say, no, this is just my friend, or this is somebody that I'm pursuing seriously. And you quickly make that distinction in your mind that you don't necessarily make for your friends that you're kind of just building and growing with. So there's less intention around those types. So the expectation around a intimate relationship that you're having with a potential partner than when you are exploring these other types of relationships.
Remember the conversation we had the other day, Mikelah, where I was roommate. I don't know where it popped up in my head, Chris, but me and my husband origin story, right? And I had the epiphany that I didn't make him, but he went through this rigmarole. Like he had to prove himself, right? And in that moment, again, I'm sitting down and I said to Mikelah, the standard for which he became my boyfriend, then fiance, then husband was very high. But that standard is low when it comes to friendships. And as a result, you're more susceptible to hurt and disappointment because we're not exercising that same value of intention or care when you go into relationships, whether that is same-sex friendships or opposite sex friendships. Actually, my experience has been very different with opposite sex friendships because I've always had them, but it's that level of care or intention that, we're going to be friends. Like I really want to know. And that's where the disappointment sets in, that we get like, oh yeah, it's just a friend, because we relegate it as not on the top three, the big relationships you're seeking. Everybody want to marry and have parents, right? But friendships are right up there because a lot of them, again, we've had them over years and they can have a huge impact on our own romantic relationships. We know this, right? If your partner doesn't feel like this person is a good friend, that is a source of contention in relationships, period. So we have to exercise the same duty of care when it comes to how we evaluate and decide to accept friendships, So like, my best friends have all been guys. And I'll never forget, like, to the point where when I got boyfriends. Even my husband, they were just like, what's going on here? I was like, yo, I'm a friend. And I remember even before my husband came in the picture, I've had other boyfriends who are like, who are these dudes? I'm like, listen, they've been my friends for donkey years. And chances are you're going to left and they're still going to be my friends. And it has been true. Carrie, if you pack up and move, pop up, truck come, pack up, load up and go about business. Like, and it's, and also with male-female friendships, because there's that automatic suspicion that there's more there. I've had to have those conversations and just say, all right, we just want to make sure so we do a temperature check, because me not do with the bait and switch. I'm a slide in as friend and then me go try be boyfriend. Me not do that. Like, it don't work for me at all. But I found that in my opposite sex friendships is where I had more intentional conversations. And I think that's part of it. Like, you have to accept that you have to have that honest conversations. You can't just say, oh, Chris, I'm a friend. Me not like Chris like that. No, you have to do a temperature check. Chris, we still straight? You not look for me different?
Yeah, man, we're straight. When I look for you different, we don't want no problems. Trust me.
You know what I mean? But I mean, we're laughing about it, but if you, and you know, we all have significant others, and if something happens and we have those conversations with our significant others, why don't we have those same check-ins or temperature checks with friends, right? And I think that's even where it comes in. So even, I mean, one of my friendships just kind of, it went south because there's huge miscommunication, misunderstanding, inconsideration, promises not kept, all of these things, I mean, whole bangarang, right? But, you know, resolution comes, you know what I mean? And it's very hard. So yeah, that was the end of my mini sermon. So go on, Chris. Chris, I look like, all right, Carrie.
Hallelujah.
Praise the Lord.
No, but no, praise the Lord. But no, everything you said, you know, I connect with. You know, I think I'm a little bit maybe what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe abnormal in the sense that, and probably it's due to my dad making me this way, right? But I actually do that not temperature check. I actually do that
check-in
sort of assessment. No, the assessment of friendships, you know, in advance, you know, as I'm building the relationships, whether it's male or female relationships. So oftentimes I would have to say, no, I started this in a later part of my life, not when I was in my 20s, because when I was in my 20s, I was still learning a lot of things. And I'm still learning now, but I would have to say that having had conversations with my dad about relationships, because I've had, you know, the few friendships that, you know, have gone bad and so forth, and just having had the conversations and learning and just seeing how he lives, and even my mom, how she lives, you know, how they've established their relationships. I've been able to have those honest conversations with the people I'm building with to assess whether they're real or not and put them in the correct category. You know, one of the things you said is and it's so very true. A friend hurting you can be almost worse than a romantic partner hurting you. You know, because especially based on the depth of the friendship and how many years you've known each other and so forth. I remember having a falling out with a friend and, you know, talking to Tony and saying, oh, you know, I don't understand. Like I did this and this and that and blah, blah. And I was always, I don't know what happened. And, but it was over communication or miscommunication. So, you know, I guess she didn't understand where I was coming from. And so, you know, Tony pointed out something to me that maybe I made an assumption about something and I said, okay, all right. So then I went back, you know, forgot about pride and ego and all that stuff and said, you know what? Okay, this friendship is worth saving. I do want to see this friendship grow. So let me revisit it and have a conversation with this friend. And I had the conversation and that's all it was. It was just clarity that was needed. Now, once the clarity was there, we laugh and everything good and we're good again. And we're fine. But, you know, we have to be able to objectively, you know, take a step back, maybe talk to somebody, like he said, you know, you talk to one person, two people, like my dad said, and say, well, you know, okay, I want to make this work. Let's make it work because it's a relationship and friendships. I know for me, one of my favorite expressions, I think Mikelah always said it, right? Or you may have said it, Kerry, before, good friend better than pocket money. So you have that good friend. That good friend can see you through so many. And I can't tell you how many of those friends have helped me along the wayside. Like, there have been times when, I'm on my face, and I don't want to go to my parents because I don't want to burden them with certain things. And it's that friend or those friends that I've said, no, man, Chris, don't worry yourself. You don't have to worry. I got you.
There's a couple of things that your father said, I'm going to get to, right? But I remember when I was going through a very difficult time with the breakup of our friendship, and my sister-in-law was like, yo, when it's the darkest time of the night, you see the stars the brightest, right? And those are the friends. And because we've all had friends where you're paying a lot of attention to, but all these other friends are still there. And so you kind of contend with, in the process of giving my full 100 to Chris and Mikelah, did I ignore Sarita? Did I ignore Rachel? We have to kind of evaluate that. But he said something that friendships have an impact. They have an influence. They have an energy. And so in that impact or that energy, right? Because a lot of times people outside that friendship are observing this friendship or the relationship. So Mikelah, they observe me and Chris, or you and Chris, yeah, observe me and Mikelah. And there's a particular insight that you have because we're in this fishbowl together and we may not be able to see it. And I find a lot of times that when there comes a fork in the road about our friendship, the people outside the friendship, so Mikelah, other friends, my other friends, Chris, your other friends, who know that we're all friends but are not in this relationship with us, have observations that they've never said to us. And we're like, why you never say nothing? It's like, I never want to say nothing, I never why you think I'm jealous or something. I think that is kind of where the second or the third, the interventions become tricky, because it's not that people don't see it. Them just say, I'm not going to mind my business. That has happened to me at least 2-3 times where people are like, yeah, I noticed it, but you pick them for your friends, so you must know. That's the cops. Like, what? Like,
it's simple relationships, right? Like, if your friend is dating someone that you're not fond of for whatever reason, or you can't quite put your finger on it, but something is off, that's based on like an energy of some sort. And it's the same concept. And at the same time, I've had that situation too, but I don't wrong that person for not saying anything at the time because I wasn't ready to receive that information. So a lot of times, like, we have to evaluate where other people are in their journey with the people that they're on their journey with, because it's not yours to take. It's not yours to impose upon. It's theirs. So while you can be an advisor to the positivity around nurturing that relationship, that journey is still theirs. To me, it's the same expectation I have with my relationships, my husband, and everyone else. If I deliberately tell you I'm on this journey with this person, my expectation is that you support it holistically, whether it's understanding where I am in the moment to kind of guide me through that, whatever it is. And to me, if Karen has said nothing, she knows me not ready to hear it. I'm going to respect
the
it.
Story of our lives. Mikelah always said, boom.
Karen, more time, I'm on a serious thing. I'm like, Karen would tell me something 6 months ago. I'm going to come back and say the same thing to Karen. Karen's like, but me tell you that 6 months ago. I said, but I wasn't ready to receive it then because I can't action this something. And that's work related. So why, like, for me, I'm like, that must happen in my personal life too. You know what I mean? So I think
it is the story of our lives.
But I'm okay.
Yes.
I am okay. I'm going to live until I'm 100 years old. I need to have long-lasting relationships that can build like and unveil like an onion. I don't want to know everything about everybody at the same time. All things about my husband, I don't want to know. I want to grow and learn about him as him grow and grow with him.
At the same time, the moral of the story there was also for me to not take offense, because Mikelah never hear what me said 6 months ago, or not hear what me say. I don't take offense to it. Me just say it becomes a joke.
But she know say I'm not something there.
it becomes a joke, so I don't take offense to it. And she's not like, oh my God, this know-it-all. We meet each other where we are and just like, all right, carry crystal ball over here. So Mikelah not really ready. And we just keep it moving. And it is what it is, right? And it's also the same way it is with my other friends. Like, I meet them where they are as well. So I'm not upset with the friends who may not say anything. I even try to encourage them to say something, because the way my Virgo brain operates, I want information. So tell me, if I have a blind spot, I want you to tell me. But I understand also with friends, it can be tricky. So to all our points, it's reconciling or making up and friendship. These things are so tricky, especially in our age. Let me tell you my biggest pet peeve. I don't like say pet peeve, but I'm tell you my biggest pet peeve right now. True word for me on the internet. No, if you have a problem, say it directly. Not true word. I don't have time for it. Say it directly to me. That is a pet peeve. So
that person people.
That me go for say.
Go me am 22 and have some.
So forget the next bus of food. Listen. If is this true word business? Like, I know you're talking about me, and then when me say I know you're talking about me, me never call no foul. You call the foul and I came. You just kind of use something else to kind of buffer this. So the problem with social media is that we then defer to social media to litigate or mediate a friendship, where social media is not there for your reunification of your friendship. They're there for the sole entertainment purpose of this cascas, this mix-up and blender that is playing itself out in social media. That's all it is. The people upon the timeline and the friends, they're not there for makeup. They're just like, yo, I'm just here just to watch the tea. Like.
Can I get some popcorn with that, please? Butter.
One time I just ignore and say, well, I don't must me, because if I'm me, you would have said something to me directly. Cause I'm not that person. I'm not going to at you or tag you unless I really got something to say. I will pick up a phone. I will call you. I will take it offline. Either I'm going to tag you intentionally. Subliminals don't work. I can't do that. If you have a specific issue or like, so none of my friends would ever. That is an expectation that all of my friends know. You got a problem with me, you come talk to me. You can't even text me. But no go on a public platform, come tag me in a foolishness. Me no in it.
You will get a permanent ignoration. All right? I will be ignoring you forever.
I think we have grown to experience the addition of social media, whereas a lot of kids growing up or younger folks in a different generation, they're growing up with it. So like I see that intentional relationship building that is lacked with, like, say, my daughter's generation, because I see it so observantly. Like, there are things that they are making assumptions about or not talking to, or you feel a certain type of way, you should be able to express yourself outside of 140 characters to somebody who you say is your friend. So it's like now going back and like, well, what is a friend to you in your mind, and how are they supposed to behave? What is your expectation of them? And a lot of times they don't even know, because they don't know the communication. Like, they don't build that communication. And I talk about this with parents all the time about kids and technology, is they know how to communicate when they need something very specifically, and they know how to use the technology, but they lack the skills offline to communicate effectively what they're feeling, understanding. And that's just being part of this generation. So the quick Twitter thumbs, and like I have, younger, and I'm like, I'm not with that. But I also understand that they don't necessarily have that same understanding because they're growing up with this particular technology. So rather than ostracize people for, we all know not to like just blurt things out on the internet. I mean, some people of our age don't know that, but this circle does. And it's like having diarrhea of the mouth. and you can't take it back. Even if you delete a tweet, you delete a post, it's still in the system software. They can find it if they really wanted to, period. But there's this lack of understanding for this next generation as they learn about friendships, relationships. And we see it with celebrities all the time. Celebrities are just mirroring what happens in everyday life. Oh my gosh, you like this person picture, that person picture. Like, you and I are like, who has time for that? Like the picture, don't like the picture. It doesn't impact me. I'm not going to see who you followed and unfollowed and who you commented on today. Like, I'm busy. But this is something that this generation takes seriously. So how do we approach it? Why is this important to you? Like, there's something else there.
At the heart of it, it goes back to, we are not really having honest conversations around friendships. But what we don't talk about is the real reason we feel this way. We all want to feel accepted and part of something. So you feel a way if somebody doesn't want to be your, or you perceive that they don't want to be your friend, and you want to know why they don't want to be your friend. It bothers some people. It doesn't bother other people, but it's at the core of why someone doesn't want to be my friend, and what you assume are certain behaviors that they don't want to be a friend. And it's like what Mikelah said, well, did we have a common conversation that we're going to be friends? And every time I post, you're going to like every post. I asked Mikelah, they know some people unfollow people. Like, what level of investigation are going on? So, like, me not have time for that. But it like Mikelah said, that matters to some people. And like your father said, it is beyond the surface. You look at the action, but that is a reaction to a deeper situation underlying. And I think we all have to pay attention to that. And sometimes taking a pause in friendships is necessary for us to step back and say, okay, what's the deeper underlying thing that is happening? Why this person said this to me, or why this person said that, or why I didn't respond, or why am I beating myself up for letting this person do this to me or allowing this to happen? We all have to deal with that. We just don't want to do it in friendships. We're not going to answer no question. We just going to talk. So I want to switch it up and make it fun. Last thing as we wrap up, what are some messages that you heard over your lifetime about friends that you find funny or true, or they've shaped your worldview on friendships? So I'll start as an example. Growing up, my friends were my cousins. I come from a very large family. So my mother would tell me, say, you don't need no friend. You have your brother them, your cousin them over there. Or mommy would say, yo, are you one coming in the world? You don't need company. Those were the messages. So I learned very early that I'm supposed to be okay being by myself and not having a whole bunch of friends. And it's in telling you both this that I understand that's my personality. My friends growing up, I was all related to them, period. I was related to most of them other than my classmates. I was related to them. I couldn't go already. We don't know, so no sleepover, no exist for we. None of those things. So I'm curious to hear what were your experiences.
Nothing specific stands out except the idea of be careful of the company you keep. And it can go both ways, because essentially it's kind of like, show me your friends and I'll show you who you are. But I also feel like that's not necessarily true, because you have different circles of friends. So, and that can change, right? Like the friends that you hang out with, who you say they're your friends, you don't really know where they land until very later on in life. I think it takes time to establish what a true friend is. And like when you're young, like there needs to be this open window policy of grace, because you don't really know, you haven't experienced anything yet. So you call everybody your friend. But I think as you get to a certain age, that becomes a little bit more applicable. So like the company you keep, like watching the company you keep. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a similar thing for me. And then also, don't follow, because, you have a bag of friends. Don't be no follower. Don't run behind this one. Don't run behind that one. Be a leader. Stand out on your own. You jump to exactly. So I got that early because I remember my grandmother saw me follow. Well, I followed some friends home and I took a shortcut through the gully. And You know,
They on the
people.
gully side.
No. You know what I'm saying? So no, my grandmother found out about it and she, me guzum for say, well, listen, don't do that ever again because, you could have come up missing. You could have gotten, hurt. Anything could have happened, right? Don't be a follower, be a leader. So from that, that sunk in and I started to make sure I make smarter decisions. But yeah, those are some things that stuck with me that have continued to stick with me to this day. And I try to impart to the younger ones to make sure they understand,
No, and then in closing, we just have so many songs that also can help celebrate the friendships, but also sow seeds of distrust on friendship and also are also life lessons. And I think the wisdom is depending on our mood. It's kind of where certain songs, like, they feel really real, and like to Michaela's point, you don't really appreciate or understand that dichotomy until you are old and you've gone through some things,
Yeah.
And so songs are good to kind of capture the essence or experiences. But boy, I tell you, we're not short of them at all.
I feel like that's like a dancehall starter pack. Bad Mind Friend, Gyal Tune, Gun Tune. Like, those are like the different categories.
That's a starter pack.
And inspiration. Like, I make it today, but tomorrow I gotta make it. And so it's like those are the themes that we hear all the time, and it's reinforced. But those are life themes, right? And they're reinforced through music because every generation, you can go way back to the 60s, 70s, and they have some sort of songs related to friendships and watching out and all of that kind of stuff. And they don't change because the nature of it's like love songs. The nature of love songs, while the delivery is different, the emotions are always going to be there so long as you have a heartbeat. So I think we find even more creative ways to say the same thing.
So thank you, everyone, for listening in on this conversation with friends. Mikelah is a good friend. And, I just met Mikelah a couple years ago. And a long time I know Mikelah. Chris, literally the other day. And, this idea of no new friends, I don't believe that. But we have to make a lot of intentional effort to build strong friendships. And like Mr. Williams said, it's oftentimes we may have to prune some. We never really touch on outgrowing some friendships, but there's a natural progression out of some friendships, So thank you for listening. I enjoy having them on the show. At one point, it wasn't like I was recording. I completely forgot that we were recording an episode. But last words, Mikelah, Chris.
Last words. Oh man, I don't really have any last words. I just think this was a great show and glad we got a chance to do it. And my last word is we need to do this again. We need to do this again.
I agree. Yeah. This is a nice
Breadfruit Media is listening.
So
yes, Breadfruit Media.
Hey. I think, give yourself grace, give the people around you grace, and continue to nurture the relationships that matter to you the most.
And on that note, until next time, walketh good. The Carry On Friends podcast is produced by Breadfruit Media, and new episodes are available every other Tuesday morning. You can listen to the podcast on the website, carryonfriends.com, or you can listen on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, or wherever you like to listen to your podcast.